that the mission of Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners. And I'm going to ask you to join me in the salute to the flag. After the salute to the flag, I'm going to ask that we take, we remain standing for a moment in recognition of the 18th anniversary of 9/11 and all the people who died that day and all the people who are still suffering from the effects of that catastrophic.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If there's anybody here who would like to address the school committee on any subject not on the agenda, this is their opportunity. Please state your name and address, and if you have any written material.
Pam Steele, 10 Pilot Hill. I'm going to type it up and bring it back. I just wrote it quickly. Do I have only 3 minutes?
Yes.
I have three categories. If you cut me off by the third, I'll be back the next time for that one. Okay. Dr. Sapphire, right? I keep mispronouncing names. Mentioned legacy. Well, the legacy that I'm faced with was given to me by what I'm going to tell you in a minute. And I will be taxed out of my home because of the legacy of previous administration. So I really am adamant that legacy is important, but it hasn't helped me. The legacy we are living with is the fuller going by the boards and the city pursuing new schools. If East Gloucester or vets are vacated, will they sit idle, decaying in place while condo developers can buy them at basement rates and bail out the city? If our cost of each new school is $30 million each and the new sewer could be $220 million, to our tax burden, who has the money in not an aging population? How about the Community Plan 2000 that citizens supported? We seem to be ignoring that as well. It refers to the importance of our open space and recreation. Have you read the plan? This body has a lot to answer to, and so far all I ever hear is Dore and Whittier, Dore and Whittier, Dore and Whittier. And then I have this article talking about the aging population, which I think is part of this equation. Most homes on KPN are owner-occupied by year-round residents. The majority of homeowners on KPN are older adults, and nearly 53% of homeowners age are 60 and older. We are living longer, in many cases experiencing longer retirements than any previous generation. Growth in the region's older population is expected to continue, with projections suggesting that older adults will represent more than 40% of the region's population by 2030, Gloucester Daily Times. And the third thing is, if you want kids to succeed and compete with China, you have to make sure that by the 3rd grade they're reading on grade level. We're not there. That's the main goal of a school. Not the size of the room. Until you can prove to me that every kid is on grade level and is going to be able to compete, because you know the statistics, they don't catch up and there's a high dropout rate. Gloucester scores are terrible. We never talk about that. And if you think a new school is going to handle this, I didn't want to bring up any of this, but I feel like I've been forced to. The scores aren't good. The kids don't go on after high school. Talk about stuff like that. Build a program or something. Don't try to spend money for it. It's not going to solve the problem. And you're not going to be able to afford it. $50 million for West Parish, another $30 million. Are you really going to have $1 million a year to support these schools? It's never talked about. I just, I'm gonna ask it every time until I can get somebody to have a dialogue with me.
Come to my office and I'll have a dialogue. And I'll show you the explanation. Anyone's more than welcome to come to my office. I was sitting on the outside, and usually I don't interrupt, but when we talk about my students not going forward, my high school students who are phenomenal and doing great and becoming your teachers and your mayors and your city councilors and your senators, going to Harvard, I take offense. So you're more than welcome. I have an open door policy. Anyone can come in and I'll give you statistics and everything else. The Gloucester Education Foundation, our principals, may not be the size, you're right, may not be the size of a classroom, but guess what? When they say the sky's falling and things are falling apart and you have asbestos and we keep repairing, we keep fixing things, sometimes when you can't repair, it's just done. It's the same thing when you were young, and no offense, you kept putting patches on those jeans. And you put patches and patches and patches and patches until the only thing you could do was wipe the floor with them. My children are not worth wiping the floor, so come see me in my office. Sorry.
Any other oral communications?
Hi, Mary Ann Ellen Boucher, 93 Mount Pleasant Avenue. I'm going to repeat my letter from Monday night since Safazia, you were here, and I think it's really important that the whole committee hears this letter. The school committee states that they are committed to consolidating eliminating 2 of the 5 current elementary schools. If the East Gloucester plan moves forward with consolidation, 440 students will be attending elementary school, either on Green Street or Meadows Field. If the Green Street site is chosen, they will attend school in amongst a supermarket, Marshall's, Aspen Dental, Ace Hardware, Petco, Olympia Sports, and soon to be Starbucks, YMCA, Home Goods, and many more retail shops. Not to mention the 200 living units, and as I found out on Monday nights, there could possibly be an additional hotel or assisted living. We don't know that yet. Our elementary age children will be sitting in class or playing on a small 70 by 100-foot play area, while commercial trucks and countless cars from all of these new buildings make their way in and out of the shopping development. Our elementary age children will be attending class next to the highway that is already congested from the 8 Viander Bridge to the foot of East Main Street. Our school committee is committed to giving the city's children the best educational program, but is this plan the best and safest for our elementary age children? I've attended countless meetings for the past 7 years, and while I appreciate the efforts of these committees, I truly believe that the clock is ticking, forcing you to accelerate the process. I'd like to know why you are rushing to make the decision. From my research thus far, it's based on making sure that we do receive the MSBA funding and not based on the ultimate goal of placing our elementary age children in the best and safest settings where the educational needs are met as well as their emotional and social needs. We are a city setting the bar to be green, yet this plan places the emphasis more on the traffic, more traffic, more busing, more parking spaces, and less on play space and less green space. The research is there. Smaller neighborhood schools benefit our elementary age children. They need much more than fancy new facades with grand entrances and 120 parking spaces. They need wide open spaces, trees to climb, green grasses, places to explore. They need to recognize their peers, their staff on a personal level. The Green Street neighborhood is maxed out with the current development, and now this may be shoehorned in. This will certainly tip the iceberg. They have no land left with the exception of this green open space. The veteran site is the home of a field that was dedicated to a fallen veteran, a war hero 84 years ago, and also leaves no room for more congestion. I urge this committee to take a step back and reevaluate the sites that you have in front of you. These are not the only options. And listen to the West Parish parents who spoke the other night, who love their school in their own neighborhood. All of Gloucester's elementary school children deserve the configuration of the 5 elementary schools that were set forth by our school committee when this project began at the start of the West Gloucester or West Parish construction. And Mr. Volk, at the very end of the meeting the other night, said we are here, quote, we are here to find a place for the most number of kids as soon as possible. I would really say, let's find the best place and the safest place that meets the needs of our children. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'm sorry to everyone that I wasn't there. I was actually with your cousin who needed me.
I know you are, and I appreciate that.
So
Thank you.
I would have came and I would have spoke, but you're more than welcome to come to my office. I will write a letter. Because we are looking at the 1924 deeded, and we have been looking at it, and we have every right to build what we want. Even if it was dedicated, let's say it was never in the record as a playground. Baseball field's not a playground, and we can argue until we're blue on that one. But also wait, because I'm interrupting the school committee meeting, so I want to give them a time, and I will write. And you know what? You're the one, okay, I'm sorry, but you're the one who educated me as a city councilor, and I'm sorry, harassed me, complained to me, and bitched to me that you needed a new school, it was falling apart, until the other day you sent me an email that the wall's falling down. Wait a minute, I'm just gonna say my piece and let everyone go on, and we'll talk, Mary Ann. We're not rushing into this, and you all seem to forget. I am not taking out loans unless everyone in this community votes to do so. What we have to do, and the reason why we're not rushing it, and no one's putting any child at risk, we have to send 2 plans, vote on 1 plan, see what they say, and then when it comes back, if we get it, we're very lucky if we can get two loans within a 10-year span. We've gotten more money from this administration ever. I'm going to take whatever I can and see, but I'm going to make the people of the city of Gloucester vote on it. We're going to do a special election, and that's where we will educate.
$18,000 on that special.
Well, you know what? $18,000 to spend on that special election, then everyone decide.
Should be at the, it should
You
be
know
at
what? We could have, should have, would have. We're going to let everyone decide. The taxpayer. We have 30,000 people here, 15,000 homes that can decide. I am sorry I came in late. I'm sorry I couldn't come last night. I apologize. Come to my office so we can discuss all the issues about open space, the truth, the not truth, what we're doing. And you know what? I love to see you on Veterans Day. Not you, but all the people who say that we don't care about war heroes. But you know what? Joel Fabaza. His grandfather's a war hero. 100 years American Legion.
Yeah.
I didn't see anyone who was complaining about anything on the fields show up. I've been to memorials. We stopped doing parades because nobody shows up. We have prisoners of war still alive. Michael and Porter, who gives the community. Does anyone know? Joe Mondello, his brother Frank, who passed away. Did you sit down and have a conversation with them? I'm sorry, I'm not targeting you. So I'm targeting people.
You can't target me.
No, you're in there.
I spent a lot of.
But I'm saying, please don't say we don't care about war heroes, because that's offensive. Not you. I'm saying this general to the public when I get all these emails that this school committee and this administration here does not care about war heroes when we're there all the time. And we listen to the stories. Joe was there. If it wasn't for his family, because the Fabaza family keeps outgrowing the schools, on the other side, they filled the whole thing. This is a man who's 94 years old that was there when Howard Blackburn gave him his first fish. He was there when the fisherman statue was first there. He served the war. He showed me a dollar bill that said Hawaii. And why does those dollar bills were Hawaii? You know what? When they say that all of us here do not care about veterans, it hurts me because we do nothing but care about them and support them. So let's not talk about war heroes, because I still have people that we all know, the Veterans Memorial, the Vietnam that wants to go onto the boulevard, they waited. I am not putting this veteran or war hero against another, but guess what? We do support it. And when they say, you keep mentioning war heroes, let's talk to the ones that are alive. I'm sorry that I interrupted. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'd just like to say a number of things.
Stocky's here.
Thank you. You missed me all summer, didn't you?
Yeah, we did.
There are a number of things that are incorrect that have been stated over and over about all of these things. And I'd just like to point out one of them. And one thing that people don't understand is Gloucester has the 78th lowest tax rate in Massachusetts out of 356 communities. 78th lowest tax rate. Second of all, so if the taxes are killing you, I'm not sure where you can move to, but it's low here. The taxes are low. That's a fact. The other fact is that the West Parish School cost $39 million, and we got $14 million back from the state. So it cost the city $25 million. Okay, those are facts. So a lot of numbers get thrown around, and it is our intention We will probably discuss this at the building committee meeting tomorrow, but to have another hearing where we, is informational, where we try to address all of the questions. We've set up a website, on the website, on the school committee website. You can go and you can ask questions, and it is our intention to get them answered within a couple of days if they can be answered. You have to understand that it's a committee. The committee does not have opinions. The building committee does not have opinions as to why we should do something or this and that. Individuals may, and you're certainly free to talk to individuals and ask them, but the committee as a whole does not have opinions. We can only comment on facts and what we have voted, so that is the way it'll have to be. So, without further ado, do we have any recognitions? Kathy?
I would just like to recognize all the schools, the principals and staff for a very smooth opening. I think everybody's happy to get back to school. A lot of smiling teachers, welcoming lovely kids and teenagers and high school kids, and I think everybody's off to a good start and very excited to be back.
And I'd like to thank everyone who came to the 9/11 today. We have wonderful students. Those cadets, they were there for the 100th, and it's just the beginning of the 100th for the American Legion. They'll be celebrating all year long. We have wonderful students who show up, ask questions, get involved, volunteer, your ROTC, all of them. I'm having the mayor's Halloween party, our kids that volunteer and interact. You know, we're very fortunate in Gloucester with the students we have, because let me tell you something. More grants that we're getting, we got that, congratulations to the Board of Health and School on that wonderful grant for preventative to do drugs. We're the first in everything. You know what the mayor said? I couldn't go to my own conference today, and I sent Jim, and there was other people who sent their CAOs. And they said, and Jim joked around, he says, well, at least you won't have me talking for 35 minutes, because you know she'll take her time. And they said she does whatever she wants, but she's really lucky, because we're ahead of the ballgame. We do so much. You know, we look at things in our community, and the grass always looks green on the other side, but if you don't put water on that grass, it's going to die. But let me tell you something. As soon as we see something wrong, we're right on top of it. We work with the schools. This administration of schools never worked so close ever. Plus education clinics, all the things we're doing, we see that something's missing. You know, we knew that our automotive in our high school wanted. Someone come up and gave all these things. We've got now kids who are graduating that would never go to college because they want to use their skills, blue collar, union people, who want to work auto mechanics, you know? You need those, because not every Harvard grad's going to be able to change my oil or actually fix my bodywork. But to have someone come in and say, you know what, you want to do better, I'll pay for your school, I'll do that. Why don't you learn more international this? We have so much, and people that want to give. And thank you, I'm glad you're here, Christine, to the Gloucester Education Foundation. It's not easy. I walk around and I look at all the other communities and look at their schools and look at their rates and look at everything else that people are complaining where they're going, what they're doing and stuff. You know, some of them can't even do it alone. They merge. Yes, they are. That's the new wave. Everyone's merging to get what they want. And people, to get to schools, they want to know. And I joke and they said, how'd you do it? How did you get them to come around and say yes again? You know, we had to wait over 15 years before they came back to us. That's because we got, you know what, because we did it right the first time. And we're going to do it right the second time, and it never fails. We've got a great administration with the school administration that we work together and we want to get on top of it. And if they come again and say another third time, yeah, then we'll look at another school and look at other projects that we need to do. So thank you all. So we all should be applauded.
Any other recognitions?
No, Mr. O'Fearn.
Okay, we have the return of our Student Advisory Council, so if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us what's going on in Gloucester High School, and welcome to the Gloucester School Committee.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm Emily Myron, I'm the Secretary of the Executive Board. So we're really excited about this upcoming school year. We've had a strong start. Freshman elections, the papers are all due on the 17th, and it looks like there will be a good turnout. We've had a lot of interest and a lot of people are getting involved, so I'm excited about that. And the sophomores are doing the Yankee Candle fundraiser. It's going to go through the end of October, so they have a lot of time on that. And then the seniors have a bunch of upcoming fundraisers. We are raffling off a chance to sit at the field, like on the field for one of the football home games. And then we're doing a bowling fundraiser on October 6th, and we're getting some teams together now. And lastly, we're doing the Gloucesteropoly boards, so they're on their way, and they should be ready to sell for the holidays.
Nice, excellent.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much. I always tell the people, you're welcome to stay. but we understand if you have to.
Careful that way.
Yeah, look out the wire.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that anybody would like to remove for further discussion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Our first educational issue is we have the annual report from the Gloucester Education Foundation, and the executive director, Christina Ramo, is here to tell us all the wonderful things that you do.
Thank you, Chairman Pope, and thank you everyone for inviting me here to give our annual update on the Gloucester Education Foundation and our work in the schools over the past year. It's been a good year. Since 2006, when GEF made its very first grants, we have raised what is now approaching $8 million for the schools, so we're very proud of that. Last year, we provided support totaling nearly $285,000 for a number of programs that are aimed at getting students new opportunities and getting them excited about learning. I just want to take a few minutes to tell you about some of them. In our elementary schools, GEF support for theater has always been a consistent priority since the organization started. And this past year, we actually increased our support by 60% at each school, so that every student, for 4th and 5th grade students, have the opportunity to participate in a theater production. GEF funds enable the schools to hire outside theater professionals so that children learn from drama coaches about acting, voice projection, posture, stage presence, all of which help children develop speaking skills, poise, confidence, and it just spills over into a lot of other areas. Last December, GEF partnered with the K-Band Museum in bringing a noted children's author, Sherry Dusky-Rinker, to our schools. She was actually visiting the K-Band Museum as they opened the Little House exhibit. And she extended her stay to stop by Plum Cove and Veterans Schools to read her new book, Big Machines, which is based on Virginia Lee Burton. At Beeman Memorial School, GEF again supported the popular summer engineering camp that was piloted last year by 2 Beeman teachers. This year, about 120 students attended the 5-week program that allowed them to explore various fields of engineering by getting involved in a number of hands-on problem-solving challenges. At another elementary school, Veterans, GEF provided support for a new sound system for the theater, the auditorium, which was installed by community volunteers in time for the spring musical. O'Malley Innovation School, so the opening of an exciting new project in aquaponics in the school's biolab, and with the help of funding donated through GEF, welcomed an intern from Salem State University who worked with the students in this project. Students maintained 67 separate aquatic setups that included 600 goldfish, 1,000 lettuce plants, and billions of bacteria, all working together to sustain balanced life systems. It was a fun activity. The mayor was there for the opening. It was a fun activity. But it was also a really innovative way for kids to learn about chemistry, microbiology, alternate growing methods, sustainability, and even physics. And it's going to be repeated again this year. Also at O'Malley, students in health classes are now learning about the physiology of mindfulness with a focus on understanding the body's reactions to stress and strategies for self-regulating and reducing stress. In O'Malley's art classes last year, students were able to dabble in one of Gloucester's most famous art forms when local artist Mary Rhinelander came and presented 2 series of workshops on printmaking. Students were able to make their own original prints learn a little bit about the history of printmaking and the Folly Cove designers in Gloucester. And they were able to use the original acorn press that the Folly Cove designers used, and which is on loan to the school from the Manship Artist Residency in Lanesville. And O'Malley Academy continued again last year with support from GEF that helped the district meet the matching funds level required by the state, and allowed us to leverage another $140,000 in state funds to support the program. About a third of the student population attends O'Malley Academy, and it provides a rich curriculum of after-school classes in a variety of subjects, and also summer classes. Gloucester High School was the major beneficiary of a lot of our funding this past year, totaling nearly $160,000 that have provided major resources in the school science classrooms. This fall, the students enrolling in the school's robotics classes have returned to a new state-of-the-art VEX 5 robotics system. And this was a really big deal. This is the latest generation of robots and ancillary equipment so that our students can explore this emerging field. Students in the advanced physics classes now have access to high-quality online textbooks and homework systems, as well as an entire system of weights, measures, pulleys, sensors, and other equipment that make it possible for them to master principles of physics and perform high-level calculations through virtually hundreds of exercises and experiments. Environmental Science Studies completed the second year of a GEF-funded program in coastal studies examining the impact of sea level rise on the community, which of course is a big concern in Gloucester. And a new program that we funded last year that's getting underway in earnest this year is a program that is aimed at supporting girls and underrepresented populations as they pursue career studies in science and technology and engineering. The program is part of the Generation Girl nationwide initiative that's being sponsored by the Applied Materials Foundation, and we are, the high school is really the only site in Gloucester that is part of this initiative. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the very generous $150,000 pledge that Mr. Warren Waugh of Gloucester provided to the Automotive Technology Program, which is really allowing that program to expand and bring in more students who want to study this field. We continue to support after-school music instruction, school theater, the Citywide Arts Festival, Countdown to Kindergarten, Dance in the Schools, and yes, the Mad Hot Ball. Looking ahead this year, we will be funding these and other programs, including a new all-grade science initiative at O'Malley, allowing students to learn electrical engineering, an after-school pilot program in coding at one of our elementary schools, and an all-district program, Drain Smart, which teams GEF up with Seaside Sustainability to teach students about important environmental issues as they beautify the storm drains around their schools. In the arts, GEF is supporting 2 new high school initiatives. In music, we have provided funding for You Can Do It, which is a new class which allows students who missed out on music earlier in their careers to have the experience of learning and performing on an instrument. And in the fine arts classroom, GEF previously funded a new large format printing press, which is now up and running, and will be allowing students to take an elective course in printmaking this year for the first time. I would really be remiss if I did not say that GEF and our work is possible only because we exist among very generous and caring people in this community that value education. The generous hearts of our donors pumps the lifeblood into our organization and into innovative programs for Gloucester students. GEF's board is a hardworking and dedicated group of volunteers who care about Gloucester's children and the future of our schools. And all of us are grateful at GEF for the collaboration that we have with this committee and with the district and with the incredible Gloucester community. As we like to say, together, we all help our students think the best and be their best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any, say anything?
It's overwhelming.
Thank you very much, Tina. That's,
Thank you so much.
every school committee meeting, it seems that we are accepting a donation for some specific purpose within the schools for the Gloucester Education Foundation. It's absolutely phenomenal. With the committee's permission, I'd like to take one item out of order, out of the action.
Can I comment first
Oh,
on that? So oftentimes when the foundation funds things, my child is either behind, like he's already gone through the grade or through the program, and you know, not too many things that, you know, fifth grade play obviously he benefited from tremendously, but now he is in the robotics class, and he could, every day he talks about that class. And he can't wait to get working on the project. He stayed after school today without me asking him to stay after school. So I'm really excited for the advancement in that program because it's come a long way from the early days of GEF to now. So it's nice to see the next generation advancing.
You're right, it's, I used to hear, and she used to say, well, my son's not in there, but when he gets there, hopefully. But like I said, Pam, there's so many things that they don't put in the newspaper or anywhere else. We always see negative things in the newspaper. Come find us, you know, you'd be so shocked at what's happening in our schools and just what's going on. We have children that, like, not to brag, but one of the art students who got a scholarship from Montserrat is now in New York, studying with the best of the best in internship, and what's his name? Oh, she'll kill me. Allison's son.
Austin.
Yes, thank you. And he could take over a class because the teacher was ill. I mean, we have children here, and you know what? We try to do so many wonderful things, and people want to focus on negative, and they don't really tell the good things. So if I came up really strong, it's because we always say negative things, but never the positive. You know, follow us around one day. Look, we'll take you for a tour and show you the positive things that are happening in our schools, because if you know, then that means you'll tell someone and say, you know what? Look at these amazing kids and what they're doing. And I try to go to every event they have, and the way they educate even me, I'm going like, so what is that one doing? We're ahead, even on that. When they did the plants, I'm going, what is that plant doing? And who's that? And who's my girl? And this and what that? And I'm going, oh, I gotta go back to school. It's just amazing how far advanced some of our students are. And you know what? And it's great teachers that we have. Great volunteers who want to do it, and people who believe in our system, like the Gloucester Education Foundation, and all their donors. Because they know that there is a budget, and you're right, sometimes a budget has to go for a new school, because the fact is, some of them are really falling apart, and they're not safe for the children. And you have to have that, and without the Gloucester Education Foundation, now great teachers, we wouldn't even be where we are today. So, you know, Pam, a lot of them tell you a lot of different things, but come find us, really, I really mean that. Because you'll be surprised, all the stuff that you said could be answered very quickly. Thank you, everyone.
Anyone else? I would like to take, we have under action items tonight a grant from the Gloucester Education Foundation, and I would like to move that forward. It is a grant of $10,500 for the purchase of 7 sound fields amplification systems for the Gloucester preschool. And for those of you who don't know what those are, and I assume that's most of you, because I'm only vaguely familiar with it, but it's for kids that have hearing impairments and can't hear. It's an amplification system so that they can, I believe they actually have headphones.
No, it's an amplification so the teacher is now coming through a sound system which clarifies the sound. It can amplify it and it can clarify it for the kids as well.
And the systems have been in the elementary schools for a while, so even when my son was in elementary school, it was really good because even the kids who don't have hearing issues, you know, you're hearing the teacher if you're towards the back, you're not hearing, you hear the teacher like you're right in the front, so it keeps more, you know, all the kids engaged and able to hear without.
Saves for teachers' voices too.
And the kids love using it too, because when they're answering, they'll use the microphone, which is quite cool. The kids love having a microphone. So.
Didn't West Parish get one built into their school?
Yes.
So this is
Yes.
another reason why we need a school.
Well, this is for the preschool.
and it's for there's 7 classrooms there, it's for every classroom. So, do we have a motion?
Second?
Okay, is there any discussion?
No, any free money, I'll stop.
We'll take that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank
So
you.
thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tina.
We'll move on to our next item on deliberations and education issues, and we will get a presentation from Principal Cook about turnaround plan update for Gloucester High School.
Thank you for providing this opportunity to, so soon in the school year, share a lot of the hard work that we've been up to really over the last year, really since around this time. Many of the things that are already in place and many of the exciting things to come in we work to meet the challenges that Gloucester High School faces for 2020 and beyond. So in the next slide, just a quick overview of what I'll be talking about. First, we'll be talking about our sense of urgency and the will to change and improve that is at the heart of everything else around the plan. Then the elements that go into that plan are our vision of the graduate, what students will have, what they'll know, what they'll be able to do when they graduate, walk across that stage in June at Knoll Stadium. What informs the turnaround plan? In other words, what sorts of data, what sorts of research went into creating the plan? Then I'll be talking about the 3 focal areas of the plan. Then dive in a little bit deeper into each of those focal points, into some detail about those focal points. And then talk about how do we execute the plan through a sense of collective efficacy and teamwork. So this idea that one of the greatest, when you have a group of teachers who together believe and act on the belief that all students can grow and improve, and that the improvements and changes that they make have a positive effect. That sense of collective efficacy is how the individual strengths of the teachers magnify themselves for the benefit of students overall. And then what are the benchmarks for success? How will we know as we go that we're doing better and making these improvements? So to start, and I'll return to this a few times in the slides to just sort of remind people that we have this very clear vision of graduates, and I talk about this with students. When I shake your hand and give you that diploma, our goal is for you to be somebody with integrity, somebody who has foundational knowledge, like the building blocks of your math skills, your English skills, foundational knowledge in a core area, problem solving, communication, collaboration skills necessary for productive citizenship. Our students need to be able to solve problems, they need to be able to communicate while solving problems and collaborate with other people to be productive citizens. That's our goal and that's our vision and that's what drives the whole thing. That vision comes back all the time. So as part of that, one of the things I wanted to talk about at Gloucester High School was this sense of how did we get to where we are in 2008, were in 2018. We have some preliminary data that shows some improvement in 2019. It's embargoed data right now, but we'll be sharing in the future. But you can see that even at this time, with our high needs students, even at this time in 2009 when we were very high performing school in ELA and a high performing school in math, and when in 2015 we were a level 1 school, we still had these areas where we were lagging behind with student growth for high needs students. So it's been there, but it's become more acute, and our need to make changes has become more urgent because of that. As our high needs population has grown to over 50%, the urgency is now there, and the accountability report really focuses a light on the areas and is having us accelerate, intensify, and focus our efforts to make these improvements, some of which we'll see in 2019, but the urgency remains for all of our students to make the growth that that we want to see in the community. Yeah.
Would you mind, just for this slide, what are those numbers,
Can you
points out of
share
what?
this with us?
What's the, a middle chemistry teacher, Mr. Cook, would say, what are the units here? You just get,
So yeah, sorry, I know we talk a lot about student growth percentiles.
Right.
It's so how much are students growing compared to other students? So all of the students who in 8th grade, their previous MCAS have a certain score, right, 220 say, okay, compared to all of the other students in the state at that same level, and how much did that group grow when they next take the test, right? And so you're looking for, really, we want to be over 50%, right? We want to be in the top half of our students when they come to our schools, they get this input and they grow. We want to see them in the top half. So there's no real unit, it's a percentile.
So 33%, and so top left corner of that box, 2009 for ELA, 30, that's you something that we had 33% growth, and that 39%
compared to other students. So there are 67 percentiles above that.
Even though the state only averaged at 39.
Right, because the growth for students with disabilities is being compared to all of the students' growth. So it's not going to give you the middle number.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I only show this, we did, you'll see later, how deeply we went into all this data. I could spend all day talking about the data. But I just wanted to show how in certain areas for high needs students, some of the issues that we now face have been there, even at a time where overall we were at back in 2009, they called it very high. They hadn't yet come up with a leveling system. So even as a level 1 school, some of these issues were still there for growth among our high needs students. And now, because of the accountability report and because of our number of high needs students, that is intensifying and really focuses a light on the things that we need to do, and we need to accelerate, intensify, and focus the change initiatives. And so that's what we're doing.
You have a question, Kathy?
I just wanted to see if my recall is correct, but when you say we, it's you with a large group of teachers at the high school.
Exactly, and as I said before, we'll talk about what informed the plan. So, yep, we teachers, administrators, a big team, and I'll show you a little bit about the process of how we looked at the data and then made a plan. So just a little bit of context there. So again, what is driving this, those numbers are meaningful to us because they say something about the vision, right? They tell us, those numbers give us a glimpse at how we're doing towards producing graduates who have integrity, foundational knowledge, and these skills that are necessary for productive citizenship. But as you'll see, we bring in other data as well, right? The state focuses on certain things, but to make our plan, to keep the focus on our vision, we brought in other data as well. So the next slide shows you a little bit about that. So to create the plan, we did use data from the school and district profile, including the group accountability report, very deep, meticulous dives into each section. We use local data, quantitative data, so our attendance data, discipline data, grades for students, and a lot of qualitative data, including student, parent, and staff surveys. We looked at notes from our student support team, meeting minutes, and so on to see, so we had a complete picture and weren't just relying on a few MCAS points to do this. We had observations, direct observations from 2 groups. Schoolworks in April came to visit, and they are directly related to the turnaround plan. But we also happened to have earlier in the year great data from the accreditation team, the NIASC visit. So we were able to use that as well. So we had 2 different groups, and often we were looking for places where they agreed with each other, because that was definitely something that we needed to pay attention to. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. Then with all that data, sorry, go back to the previous slide for a second. We did a root cause analysis. So if we're seeing a bit of data and we're seeing this issue reflected in some qualitative data, some quantitative data, we said, and then we would look at why. Can we look at data about why that is taking place? So that was so there's a layer of the overall data for problem areas, and then a deeper dive into
testing hypotheses about why certain issues have been persistent in the school. So in the next slide, Kathy, and that slide also showed that the team consisted of all the administrative team, the program leaders, so those are all teachers, as well as the 2 faculty chairs of the NEASC team, because we wanted the accreditation plan and the turnaround plan to work together. So those were the folks who worked on the plan, with constant consultation back to the individual departments, so all teachers. So this is what we came up with. So based on our root cause analysis, we're focusing on 3 areas. First area are the instructional practices that engage students in higher order thinking. That was across the board. If you look at the scores, a lot of it comes down to the application of reading skills and the application of math skills. For example, a couple of math teachers pointed out a particular problem on the MCAS. The problem involved 3 steps that they needed to do. The students, the teacher was confident and confirmed with the students that they knew how to do each individual step. But to put the steps together in a problem-solving manner, right, was the difficulty that many of the students faced. So we knew that we needed to really target higher order thinking, especially in our college preparatory classes. Based on feedback, honors classes, AP classes are doing well with higher order thinking, but to intensify the instruction related to higher order thinking, not just assigning higher order thinking, but what are the pieces students will need to go from dependent thinkers to independent thinkers. And then what is the support that is needed to, there's a straight end there. What is the support needed to help the students get to those higher order thinking skills? Okay, so number 1. But to do that, they have to be there, right? To benefit from the instruction, students need to be in the classroom, right? So the other thing we noticed looking at the data was not so much our overall attendance rate. Our overall attendance rate was improved pretty significantly by the policy the school committee approved in 2012. But the acute area is our students who are chronically absent, meaning they're absent 10% or more, so that's 18 days, or once out of every 2 weeks. A lot of parents and students have been surprised by that. Wait, if I'm absent once every 2 weeks, that's a problem? Well, right, it adds up to, you're at about 4 weeks at the end of the year, 4 weeks of instruction that you've missed out on. So that's become our area of focus in the deeper dives, chronic absenteeism.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
On attendance?
Yep.
Did you do a study into the attendance of teachers versus substitutes in the classroom?
That is part of the data it's part of the, at the end of this, you'll see the, benchmark data, right? So part of the benchmark data is teacher attendance as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Because we had discussed that at personnel and recognized that the high school had a higher absenteeism.
Yeah, so percentage, right, of teacher attendance year and teacher attendance by semester, and we have a particular goal of improving that to a 95%, right, as part of one of the things we'll check in on.
Okay.
Right, because if they're there,
Right.
and the teacher's not there, and if they're not there,
Right.
and then the next day they are there, the teacher's not there, yeah, it creates those gaps as well, that's right. And then the last piece was noticing that many of the, because the MCAS, right, is being given in 10th grade, for some of the students it's being given in 9th grade, and our struggling students are really concentrated in the 9th grade. Difficulties of students moving from O'Malley to the high school, and we're noticing a lot of failures, noticing a lot, and you'll see some data about this later. I'm going to share some of that data about students being held back as 9th graders as well. We tend to get them to catch up. Right? Our overall graduation rate has been, with the class of 2016 had that problem, you'll probably remember, but it's been fairly consistent for about 10 years. But they catch up, but they catch up in junior and senior year largely when they get the program, so to speak. We have to make sure that they're getting the maximum education in 9th grade. So those are the 3 areas that the root cause analysis showed. So the next piece, so this is some of the, I don't want to go over all of this data, but these are some of the highlights of the, that we looked at. So we looked at suspensions. And as you know, through a grant, we've been able to institute a PACE program, Positive Alternative Consequences in Education. We've already put it to good use this year. It is so great not to send kids home, but to keep them in the building and learning as the consequence. So that's one of the ways we've been able to take, the suspensions we normally would have already had at the beginning of the year, and they aren't going anywhere. They're with us, getting an education still. And then this is some of the data around chronically absent students. So really importantly, overall our students have about a 28% of our students are chronically absent. But that number jumps up to 41% and 44% for economically disadvantaged and students with disabilities. And that's where many of the issues are. Right? So getting the students to school is incredibly important. The state average is a little misleading because it includes elementary schools as well, which have better attendance. But it's useful to have there because our goal is to get there. So how are we doing this? So some of this is just educating parents about what absences mean. And so we can do that both through overall communication through our school messenger system, and we can also do it through targeted messages. So when a student at the end of the first, halfway through the first term, we'll be able to identify what students are close to being chronically absent at that point, 8% or so absent, and directly contact those parents. We're also having on Meet the Teacher Night, we're hosting a session on absenteeism and a session on the 8th grade to 9th grade transition. So while we have them, that's a night the high school level, we don't see the parents as much, but before the regular Meet the Teacher Night starts at 6, we're having folks in at 5:30 to target those areas. Student behavior referral form is really a way. Students can also be absent during the school day because they're sent out of class for being disruptive. So we need to have some better data around that, and we want to see, and so we've designed as part of this plan a student behavior referral form that will help us better understand when students are not in class for disruptions during the day and how we can prevent that from happening. Welcoming students, greeting students, really being visible is something that we knew we could do better. And so we've been able to do that through the beginning of the year. We've added a few other things, a flexible support class that will allow students to stay academically focused. We have our Bridge program that we've been able to continue running to re-engage absent students over the last 3 years through the support of the school committee. And also we've been able to expand the role of the attendance officer with our new hire last year. She's really come on and working with our deans together in a way that we hadn't had before. We've already done some house visits, getting kids to school by just going there and getting them to school. So that's attendance. The 9th grade transition, you can see some of the data, passing rate. Only 61% of all ninth graders pass all courses. Yeah. So, and then the numbers for some of high needs students and for our Latinx students are even only 43% of our Latinx students pass all courses. Right. Only 55% of males pass all courses as 9th graders. Right. This is the stuff that creates the urgency to change. Right? That's not okay. This is not okay at all. So what are some of the things we're doing? We have extended homerooms this year, so 30 minutes every 3 days that will help students with goal setting, progress checks, targeted focused activities around this transition from 8th to 9th grade. We haven't been able to really focus on supporting 9th graders that way before. And so the extended homerooms, other students will have them as well, and 12th graders and 11th graders, they'll be working on post-secondary plans and that sort of thing during that time. But for the 9th graders, we'll be able to focus on goal setting and progress checks to catch early, if they're in danger of failing. We're using an online platform to do some diagnostic testing that's really sophisticated in both English and math to get to diagnose what some of the gaps our students have in their education and to provide remediation for those gaps through the same online platform system. So that's really exciting. Our English and Social Studies department, a big change that has happened at the high school is that the Social Studies team is fully on board as literacy teachers. Right? They teach reading and writing too. They don't just assign reading and writing, they teach reading and writing. You know, gone are the days of you learn the writing over there and you use it over here. They're fully partnered, so they're getting some professional development to help with that. We added an academic skills and practice class with the number one focus group is students who have non-IEP students and who are ninth graders. How are we supporting kids? We have support classes for IEP students, students with IEPs, but now we're able to offer similar kinds of support to prevent students, hopefully, from needing that plan. So students with 504s and students who don't have a plan, and getting those interventions early. Our SST team, student support team, will be focusing in on ninth grade data. So looking at this data, how many students are failing at intervals throughout the year, so again, we can intervene in some of these other ways. We have a school growth team focused on the ninth grade, and then the same kinds of parent sessions and outreach that I spoke about earlier with attendance, but for ninth graders. Okay, and finally, the last part of the plan is to engage students in higher order thinking in all classes. So one of the things we found in the sort of the data that we got is that the building leadership, we weren't focusing enough on effective instruction. And there are lots of other things that tug at us at our time, but really being able to focus on effective instruction has been something that we've built into our growth plans for the coming year and how we'll be held accountable. And 68% of faculty reported that they spent less than half of their PLC time directly on instructional practices. Again, they're attending to other demands of the day, but we know with the urgency that we really need to focus on these instructional practices. And then some of that was supported by what our visitors, the SchoolWorks and ES visitors found. And then we saw that the higher order thinking focus, that the basic skills was really the focus of our CP1 and CP2 classes, with our honors and AP classes focusing on the higher order thinking strategies. And we knew we needed to, although it's going to look different here, it's going to be more scaffolded, they're going to have more practice, they're going to need more support for higher order thinking, but we need to engage in that. So we've created structures at the building leadership team level, dedicating half the time at least at building leadership team meetings to talk about instruction, not just running the building and those issues. Budget and those issues need to be relegated. Professional development is focused on this very topic on the 4 dates you see there. Okay, Joe?
Yeah, fine. I'm so sorry I caused disruption.
Again.
Deja vu.
I know, exactly. I'm reliving the class. PLC time is also focused on higher order thinking, and we have a form that's filled out with each meeting to make sure we're staying unfocused. So teachers when they have their professional learning communities, they are assessing themselves at the end of the meeting to make sure that they've been focused, and they're going to include that to the program leaders. And then our evaluations by administrators will focus in on higher order thinking and engaging students in higher order thinking. And we also have a peer observation team that will be offering the same kinds of support and observations, but from a less threatening peer angle as that team works on it. All right, so again, all of this is focused on coming back to getting students the foundational knowledge and getting them the problem-solving, communication, collaboration skills they need. So the data, all those numbers are useful because they help us achieve this vision and create urgency toward the vision. I did want to quickly just identify some of the things that we've been doing in the past 3 years that become more prominent in this plan. So you've heard a lot, every time I present, I'm talking about inquiry-based learning. That's one of the tools used to get to higher order thinking. So the robotics class you heard about earlier, it's really what the students are doing in that class, is they're not just, they're not following a set of directions to program something, right? They're coming up with a problem and they're seeking to solve the problem through the technology. So it follows the engineering version of the inquiry model. So that work intensifies. In the next slide, you'll see that work around Bloom's taxonomy intensifies. So these are when we say higher order thinking, well, what are the real words? Create, evaluate, analyze. That's what we're talking about. So you can always replace higher order thinking with create, evaluate, analyze. And as much as possible, those are the words we use rather than saying higher order thinking, because what does that mean? So create, evaluate, analyze. When we go into a classroom, that's what we're looking for, and that's what our teachers are looking to plan. And it can be really hard for students to analyze when they don't always have a mastery of the concepts here. But if we don't give them opportunities to do this work, you're less motivated to remember and understand, because why is it relevant? Why is that important? So teachers are working on ways to scaffold the understanding and remembering to make sure students have opportunities to get to creating things, evaluating, and analyzing, and to really motivate the remembering and the understanding and make it meaningful that way. For some of you, you'll notice that Bloom's taxonomy has changed a little bit up at the top. So where we used to talk about evaluation, synthesis, and analysis, the verbs, forgive the British spelling here, you can see that we're now talking about creating, evaluating, and analyzing. That's what we do. We do in all our jobs, right? That's the core of what we do. It's the core of the jobs of the future, are right there in creating, evaluating, and analyzing. And then finally, all of this comes under the idea of culturally responsive teaching. So every day in every classroom, how are teachers igniting students' attention? How are they chunking information to make it digestible? I've already been talking too long for most people in the room. It's really hard to pay attention for more than 15 minutes for most adults, right? Without breaks and chances to reflect, chances to chew. Greg doesn't like chew. Michael Tells, the English teacher in English, also doesn't like chew. So we say ruminate instead. We're going to ruminate. Process the information, which if I were teaching this, I would have given opportunities for you all to process, ask questions as we went along. And then in the end, review. Like, what was the presentation all about? What was that all about? And that happens every day in all classrooms. It becomes a really simple thing that everyone in the building can know and expect. And it's culturally responsive teaching. And a lot of our PD this year will be around that topic.
I like the word chew.
Chew, you like chew? Okay.
I like chew better
Makes
than
sense.
ruminate.
You can do a consensogram around chew to use it. So again, getting right down to the core of things here is that the language, they can't do it, has to go. That is gone. There is no, they can't do higher order thinking. They can't create, they can't analyze. That's gone. Not part of our vocabulary. Instead, we talk about a student might be a dependent learner. They might right now depend on help from the teacher with reminders about routines, reminders about a process, reminders about vocabulary, and that through a gradual release of responsibility, they become independent learners that we meet on the stage at graduation. And that's the goal, and that's the vision for it. And then part of how we get there is we need to see each other as interdependent, working towards a common goal and mutually accountable. So it's not your kids in your classroom and how they're doing, but it's our kids in all the rooms and how can we contribute to that growth, this urgent growth that we need to have. And these are some of our norms of how we, when we're together as a team, how we act, how we behave. This is useful for lots of bodies that collaborate together, but those are our norms of collaboration. We've made adjustments based on a couple of meetings this year. Teachers have made some excellent suggestions to update the norms. And then finally, you'll see that these are the team structures we have. We have a lot of team structures that we're accountable for. So each of these teams is accountable for particular pieces of the plan. And so that as we go and evaluate, and in the final slide, you'll see that as we evaluate along the way, these are things we will evaluate for attendance, These are the things we will evaluate for the ninth grade transition, and these are what we will evaluate for engaging students in higher order thinking. There are a couple, the list is actually a little bit longer and I cut it down. It's about 17 items that wouldn't all fit on the slide you could read. One of the things is that the teacher, percentages of teacher attendance, and then there are some details around our meetings and percentages of our focus on things at meetings. So along the way, before the MCAS happens, how will we know how we're doing? We will know how we're doing by checking on this data along the way. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions? Joel?
So I'm curious, these are, lofty goals, they seem well articulated, and obviously there's been a ton of time that went into this. So I'm curious from a macro level, as far as your ability to execute. You can take this question glass half full or glass half empty. What are you missing at the high school that would really help you achieve this more successfully? Or just what could be sent your way that would help this? Is it staffing, change of programmatics, stuff happening at other schools ahead of time? What's missing? I guess I'm going to say.
Really good question. So of course there are particular staffing requests that would certainly help, especially in the area of support and in particular areas. Class sizes, like in English, for example. We have good, as you know, we have good class sizes overall, but there are particular areas where we have some larger class sizes. And when that happens in English or math, obviously that really is at the heart of, making sure teachers have the time to provide feedback to students on their progress towards higher order. And then there are a couple layers of support. So one of the things we do have this year is we have a reading specialist, somebody to support. Right? We've been able to maintain support levels for our English language learners. So we've added, some support there. So that the level of support for interventions that keep students from maybe having to turn to special education. So we have a higher, our average for special education is about 10% higher than the state average. We've been in contact with a school that has also had a similar turnaround process. One of the things they've been able to do is greatly reduce the number of students in special education through what are called tier 1 interventions that happen in the classroom, and then offering layers of support for students. So, yeah.
So will those tier 1s be achieved by running additional sessions with fewer students in the room, or would it be achieved by having more than one teacher in a room per session? Co-teaching model?
Yeah. So the better the class sizes are, the more opportunities there are for interventions directly in the classroom for the teacher with the expertise in the subject matter and in the pedagogy related to the subject matter. So that's the tier 1 stuff. The other part of tier 1 is professional development. So Greg and I spent, our regular meetings over the summer getting together, plan and constantly revisit over the summer. So we had a comprehensive plan. And so making sure that teachers are getting the professional development time, the kind of professional development needed to have those tier 1 interventions is really important. Higher order thinking is really hard, and to get students there. How do you, students who are not able to do it on their own, what are the building blocks they need in place to get there? You've seen some of them here, but a lot of it is going to take time that teachers to dig into it, to build those steps.
I'll follow up on Joel's point. So in terms of 8th graders' readiness, have you, in the vertical transition, so you're addressing when they're there, the progress they're making in 9th grade, and you're going to keep a good monitor. Let's go back to 8th grade, and have you been working with 8th grade? I know last year, many freshmen, because my son's friends said, I wish they would have helped us pay attention to schedule better. I wish we had more homework because now it's hard to juggle all of our classes. I wish we would have X, Y, and Z. And so even the kids are saying that there were some things that didn't seem to be necessarily subject related, but habit related, that interfered with them kind of getting off and running the way they really wanted to be.
So that's a real focus because of the work last year. We're now able, so Lynn and I are able to work, often with Greg at coordinating those efforts. They've been doing a lot of curriculum work at the middle school that they're deep into. And so, yeah, some of the habits, exactly what you said, right? Making sure the habits are in place. Because the vision of the graduate is really a lot about habits, right? Habits of mind, habits of behavior and preparedness and so on. So that's because we now have this deeper dive, we can turn off. And we're doing we have this urgency at the high school level. We know what we need to do, what we can control, but working with Lynn and Greg is kind of helping us with that process that's our frontier. Our frontiers.
Great.
Listen.
First of all, can you send this presentation to us? I mean, I'm someone that believes we should get our presentations beforehand so we have an idea of what's coming. Because there's a lot of information we didn't get to go over. You went through the slides pretty quickly with some great information on there. And I'm also curious about the 17 things you cut off, because that was one of them. You said it didn't fit on the slide.
Yeah, I could put that, they're in the notes, and I can make it happen when you look at the slide.
I'd like to see that. I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
So my question is, the benchmarks, great. When are you going to start evaluating the benchmarks? Are we going to wait a whole year?
No. So like halfway through the first quarter, some of them are monthly.
Okay.
Some of them are halfway through the first quarter. Nearly everything is
Can you be a little more specific? Like which?
Yeah, sure. So, percent of tardies and dismissals, that's every month.
Okay.
So building leadership, administrator leadership team meetings are Monday. So first Monday of the month, we take a look at that.
Okay.
Percentage of students with 10 or more absences, that's by month. Out of school suspensions, that's by month. Number of disciplinary consequences, that's also by month, as well as at the end of each term. So I think just about everything. PLC meetings, address instruction, curriculum and assessment. Yeah, I didn't write that on there, but that's term-based at the end of each term. Have our meetings been focused where they should be focused, or are we getting off and talking about behavioral issues? And even though a lot of really good things to talk about, things that are happening in the building, but we want to make sure we're focused. So we'll look at that data every term. After every PD session, teachers are asked, how did that professional development help toward either any three parts of the plan: the ninth grade transition, attendance, and higher order thinking. So those all along the way, each point, including the teacher attendance data, and let's see, we have inquiry-based learning and lessons, all of those things that come from observations. These things here these are quarterly as well, and that's by term. Yeah, number of referrals to special education is term by term.
So I want to say kudos to you. This is a great presentation, and to the staff and the buy-in that's going on at the high school. I mean, this is a great conversation, and I appreciate all the hard work that's going into it, and would actually like to see O'Malley do something like this, because the needs are just as critical there. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, and I would hope that we would get some sort of report maybe by December or January, around that time, to see where we're going. I think Joe brought up a good point, what do you need? And I think that would be a good time to assess the situation to see if there is any staffing needs that could critically impact the direction that this plan's going in, to be referred to either program or B&F and both, because
it's definitely part of the budgeting process. Is this reveals things that are related. So, of course, to launch, right? Budget that already left, so we're really focused on using what we have. But yes, as we plan into December. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. I look forward to it.
Tony?
Yeah, so you brought up budget, which is where I was headed on this.
Yeah.
Next year, you're going to find the school needs to be supplied with the tools for the teachers. Now, the budget for ordinary at Gloucester, I guess it's 96% is staffing, 4% for ordinary. So there's not a whole lot, and then, tough choices have to be made at your level of where to come, or the explanation to this committee who's just seen, what you're trying to strive for. Now, I think it's very imperative that this committee understand that,
are going to need some tools, and I would keep that in mind. I know you guys get an awful lot of open source stuff, which is good, and you work with that. Teachers bring a lot to the table, you know, on their own education and research. So, yeah, I would just suggest that you keep that in mind.
So the resources
in January, in another, 2 months when you're here doing your budget.
You can hear, I mean, we heard from Tina a little bit earlier about one of the sources that we've turned to also, is, those physics books and things you talked about that are really about, that's exactly what they're about, applied and higher order thinking.
Right.
So in other areas, we'll be looking to make similar additions, but that's the kind of work that.
Craftsman's only as good as his tools.
Right. Yeah. So make sure we have the right tools. Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you.
Update. Very good.
We'll move on to the exciting and suspenseful superintendent's report.
Well, this evening I hope to give you an opportunity to ignite Chuck and Chew. My best.
Can we just watch Aladdin instead?
If you like. But before that, the opening of school, as Ms. Clancy had mentioned at the outset, generally speaking, with one or two exceptions, went very well. Was very smooth. All of the schools, for the most part, reported in that things went very, very smoothly. What's interesting is that we have had an unusual number of registrations, particularly during the opening week of school at East Gloucester. In particular, there were 11 new registrations the day before school. 6 of the 11 were students who are English language learners. A couple were moved over to veterans. They initially applied under the school choice sibling relationship rule, but it turned out through translation that the relatives were actually cousins and not siblings. So those students, where we have a little bit more resources in ELL, are now at veterans. Smooth as glass, amazing, fabulous opening, introducing social emotional programs, getting the kids used to the new situation at the beginning of school, lessons on expected conduct in the common areas, which is part of this PBIS, the positive behavioral interventions and supports, which students are learning what the expectations are in the pathways, in the bathrooms, hallways, cafeteria, at recess, and arrival, those common areas where things are a little bit less orchestrated than in the classroom. We've had some teachers trained over the summer, and they in turn at West Parish in particular are helping to implement the PBIS program there. There was some concern about opening over at Plum Cove due to the replacement of the floor tiles over the summer. They were ripping up tiles and found that they could not save the underlayment, which meant that new plywood had to be put underneath the tiles. So there was a time crunch. DPW and those that were contracted out, however, were able to complete the work, get the furnishings in by Thursday before school. Teachers had an opportunity on Friday. If they chose, they came in over the weekend as well. Plum Cove was not with us for the opening ceremony on Tuesday, so the teachers had an opportunity to get their classrooms ready, and school did begin on time, and there were no glitches. Over at Beeman, we've had some shortages of bus drivers, and the transportation routes did have to be changed. Day one was a little bit chaotic, and there was some confusion. Parents were not quite as aware of the schedules as they should have been. This was clarified, and it's been reported to me by Thursday, day 2. Everything was smooth and ready to go. Preschool opened its doors to students just this past Monday, 2 days ago. Parents did come in for open house the previous Friday. Also, a number of our schools have already had their fire drills. Right off the bat, the fire department was right on top of it. And we've already discussed the notion that we want to get other drills and simulations completed at all schools by November the 1st. In terms of the influx of late registrations, since July 1st, 80 new students have enrolled here at Gloucester Public Schools. 16 of the 80 are ELL, 11 Spanish, 4 Portuguese, 1 Arabic. terms of the overall 80, 16 new students at Beaman, 17 at East Gloucester, 6 at Plum Cove, 9 at Veterans, 12 at West Parish, and 19 at O'Malley at present, and we'll report out for the October 1st report. Our in-district enrollment total was 2,924. Last year at this time it was 2,896, so it's about a 30 student increase in enrollment at this particular time. Item number 3 has to do with the student activity accounts. You've been hearing about this for nigh on 2 years. We're ready to go. We have a principals meeting tomorrow. Gary has the checks and deposit slips, and it appears as if everything is in order. The city's treasurer has established 2 accounts. One is referred to as an agency account. Translated, that means a deposit savings account where any incoming student activity monies come in, they go into that agency account. And then proportionally, monies can be transferred from the agency account into the checking account, at each level for elementary, middle, and high school. Gary and I will be signing the checks for the elementaries. That's by consensus. Principals also agreed. Most of the student activity work will be done through invoices in anticipation of the spending of money. But there's also a contingency that if money is needed, in a very short period of time, the invoice can come later on, and we've got that established as well. The middle school and high school principals will both be signing their particular checks, and each of the high and middle school will have $5,000 at a time each checking account. I imagine the high school will probably be asking for more in around May when graduation time comes. There's a bit of an ebb and flow based on the needs of the school at that particular point in time. And the account will also hold $25 per elementary school for a total of $12,500 as well. So we'll be in business at the close of tomorrow's principals meeting. Item number 4 has to do with grade 10 ELA and math scale scores. As you know, we've gone from the traditional MCAS exam, what they refer to as the legacy MCAS, to next generation. The classes of 2021 and 2022, however, don't have the advantage of the Department of Ed having the experience of knowing what the threshold cut scores should be. So we just received notification reminding us once again that whatever the equivalent number is for the next generation MCAS, it will mirror what the passing scores were in the traditional test as well. And last, just some calendar items. We had the East Gloucester School Building Committee had its public hearing Monday night here in Cairo, not here, but at Cairo's Auditorium. I attended a managers meeting Tuesday morning. Each of the successive Tuesdays of the last few weeks and into the future, we will be having the East Gloucester Building Project Working Group. That is not an official subcommittee, it's a working group. And on September 11th, I had a meeting with the North Shore Education Consortium. I was reminded this morning, we all were reminded this morning, it's a pro forma exercise, but they do ask the school committee to reappoint the superintendent as a member of the board of directors. It is exclusively a superintendent's board of directors, but with that said, they're now asking that the school committee appoint officially me, I guess.
Second.
We should just do that.
Any discussion?
Can we see your resume?
Could I?
You should have already.
Any further discussion? We're going to vote on this.
You're gonna vote it.
We'll vote.
It's already been moved and seconded.
We're doing it right now.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
It's,
There you
Maria,
go.
you'll have
What
it in
would
the
happen
minutes.
if we voted
I can then
against
send
it?
it across to them. Thank you.
You get to find somebody else who'll do it.
We have a meeting tomorrow morning with Father Jim
Yes.
over in the mayor's office to discuss the availability of St. Anne should things move forward with the East Gloucester project. Thursday we have a school building committee, that's at 5 o'clock here, and I think we can anticipate that the school building committee will be looking to reduce from 9 options down to 2 or possibly 3 options as this process continues to move forward. There's been a lot of evaluation criteria. Each of the different sites, each of the different options have been evaluated on a 100-point scale, and that information / evidence will provide the basis for the school building committee to move forward and make its decisions. And then on Friday, the Gloucester Education Foundation has its monthly meeting, but we're going to be doing something a little bit different, going over to TV 1623, and we're going to be interviewed on camera to talk about many of the things that Tina had mentioned in her report with respect to what Gloucester Education Foundation has provided in the way of support for the school district.
Questions of the superintendent? Joel?
Just to piggyback off the meeting with Father Jim, I'm happy to hear that's happening. As I recall, when the West Parish swing space came in, one of the reasons given why we couldn't go back into Fuller and put the lights back on was that more than 2 years had passed since it was last used as a school, and so it would have needed to be brought up to current fire building or ADA code. And so my nervousness is that St. Anne's, last we used as a school, was the last time it was used as a school, and that was also more than 2 years ago. So I think that in addition to seeing availability from the owners, we should be speaking to someone at the state about whether or not we would be able to go back in and just put the lights back on, or if now it's like Fuller was, and no, you can't until you move every single wall, rewire every single room, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
They're using it as CTC classes, so they have Sunday school classes and other classes there and other programs in there.
So I think it'd be just good to make sure that the state
We'll do that. I mean, first we got to see if it's available.
Right, if it is.
And if it is.
If we shame this, oh, that's great, we'd love to have you, and we let time go by and we find out the state says, you can't put kids in there.
Yeah, we'll
Also, in the building estimates, the notion of needing a swing space is built into the estimated costs, presumably to meet the compliance issues of which you speak.
This time you're doing it with the plan.
Okay. Any other questions of the superintendent?
I move to approve the superintendent's report.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Accept.
It's unanimous. We had no subcommittee meetings since our last meeting, I believe. Correct. And we have taken care of our only action item. So we move on to the school building authority, although the superintendent pretty much just summed up what's going on. There is a timeline, and it is very condensed to get where we need to be to make the next submittal. But the goal is that we will have a month from now, at our first meeting in October, we will have a review of what will at that point be the one choice.
Yeah, October 1st is the...
October 9th, it will be. I think that's our first meeting, October 9th, yes. Okay.
He has a question.
I don't have a question, but I think Lauren Whittier is planning on coming to the school committee meeting prior to the October 9th as well.
Yeah, they're coming at our next meeting, but at October 9th, we'll be looking to vote.
Whose schedule is this? Is this ours or is this mandated by the state?
This is the building committee's schedule in order to meet the deadline of making the submittal on October 23rd,
Oh, right.
which will get us into the November meeting, because they want to look at all of these submittals for a long time, which would get us an answer by sometime in January. So it's meeting the deadline set up by the to meet the meetings. And if we don't make our submittal in the middle of October, it gets in, because they don't meet in, I don't think they meet in December. It pushes it back a couple of months.
And what does that do for the overall project?
Well, what it would do is push back the vote. It's the consensus that we don't really want to have a vote in the summer. Right now, we're scheduled to have a vote sometime in the end of May or in June.
because you have 120 days after it's been approved by the statement, what's it called? The preferred schematic design is approved by MSBA. You have 120 days to put your finances, to establish your finances. So the vote would be the issue that would establish the finances. So if we get approved in January, that gives us till May to have a vote. If we get pushed back, it would end up in, we would try not to do it in the summer because people aren't around and this and that, so it would push it back to the fall. So it pushes it back substantially if we don't make that.
It pushes the
It
funds
pushes the
that
whole
vote
project
back,
back.
or does it push the project
Oh,
back?
it pushes the whole project back. yeah.
More so, right? A couple months away would be 6 months away.
Yes.
It pushes the voting back more. So finals is like the preferred.
Schematic design.
Right, so it's the site identified at that October 9th meeting, correct?
The site will, yes.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna go tomorrow. We're probably gonna go down to 1 or 2.
Right.
And then and the reason to do that is so that they can concentrate the resources into examining those, those sites. I mean, there's limited resources.
That's my question, is that if you identify 1 or 2 sites at tomorrow's meeting,
Right.
before the October 9th meeting, the traffic studies haven't happened, but those happen before the October 9th.
Yes,
The questions about availability of swing stations would be answered hopefully before.
yes, as well as them drilling some holes in the ground and finding out what the subsurface, the underlying, what it's gonna cost to build.
Okay,
And,
so
all of that stuff would be done, and that we'd have that information when the building committee goes to 1, and then the 1 would come back to the school committee for approval.
Sure. Okay, that was my only concern, because obviously things have been getting narrowed. There's kind of been a plateau of information about the sites.
Right.
Things have been narrowed down based on the scores of what you can put on those sites.
Yeah.
But now I want to make sure the building committee has additional detail about the impact surrounding everything of the sites.
One example is the capital improvements only option. Would we, as a committee, support that with the building committee? Does that fit the goal of why we endeavor to?
The way it'll go tomorrow is we'll take each individual option of the 9, and we'll vote them up or down, one at a time. We'll discuss each one and vote them up or down.
So just to react to what Kathy just said, I'm a little concerned. Haven't gone through this process twice. I believe in the process, but after the public hearing and hearing from other people that weren't at the public hearing, I'm kind of concerned that there's not enough information to the public to understand the actual cost of the capital improvement. There are many
We are
people.
going to have another general meeting for the public. It'll be informational. In other words, we will collect questions like that, and we'll address all of those issues that we have at that point. Probably the end of September. I'm not sure. I don't have a date. We're going to discuss that date tomorrow.
But I can't help but wonder if it would be a good strategy to have that be one of the choices that goes forward, so that part of the study looks into that and there's more actual information coming out, other than just from the building committee, which some people don't trust in, given the figures. And I don't mean that disrespectful, because I appreciate all the work of the building committee. The volunteers are doing an incredible job under the most difficult circumstances. But I'm just trying to bring the community along, because if this vote doesn't pass, we have an issue. So how do we answer in depth to that question?
All right. The renovation only,
Yeah.
if you look at the presentation.
From 18 to 33 million, so there's a big.
Well, the one is 18 and the other one's 33, there are 2.
Oh, okay.
But they also scored in the 30s as far
Oh,
as
the education.
for the education. And if you want to support a program that doesn't meet our educational goals, I mean,
Yep, I get it.
that's fine, but that's your choice, but,
No, I get it.
So, but I think one of the other issues is now I said the renovation or capital improvement only, which keeps it at 220, uses everything kind of as it is and puts modulars on it. Even the ones that talk about renovating to hit the higher scores, I think what Melissa's probably hearing is, hey, listen, it's $10 million cheaper to build a brand new school than it is to try and renovate East Gloucester. And they go, that can't be real. That can't be possible. How can that be, right?
No.
And so I can see there might be value to say, fine, here's what the $1 million we budgeted to do this. We spend some money looking at and say, no, it's not just a Dora Moodier estimate saying it's going to cost more money to renovate the school. Here it is. We did all the math, we pulled all the estimates, we did the work that we were considering this as an option, and sure enough, it's $10 million cheaper to build a new school than to. This is not just guessing.
Well, this is the reimbursement that we're going to
and
get.
that's our
Here's the
intention.
binder.
Those are the kinds of things that it will be our intention to address.
Right.
We'll talk about the override. At that point, we'll have some sense.
Debt exclusion, stop calling it over.
Excuse
I
me.
hate that word.
The debt exclusion,
Not doing override.
and we'll have some ideas of what that would cost, what that would add to the tax rate. We'll try to, we're trying to compile all that, but it's, like I said, we understand that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and we need to get the right information out as best we can. We do have that website. People have started to submit questions, and, we're trying
Yes,
to.
if you've been receiving any questions, send them
Yeah,
to us by
send them.
email, and
People
we'll get
ask
them
me
up, we'll
questions.
get responses up on the website.
Because we are trying to, answer the questions.
So the question is being more specific to what the renovations would cost, and of course, you're not
We got
gonna
it.
that in.
But isn't that in the
Oh, you
binder?
get
That's
that
in the
information.
binder. Those are
It's
in
in the
fact,
binder.
to renovate East Gloucester School without changing the configuration and just is $18 million.
No, that's not renovate, that's capital.
That's capital
improvement.
Capital improvements only, excuse me.
Renovation was-
To renovate it, and change the walls around and try to make it more, but not change the outside structure is 30.
And
To
just
build a
stuck
new
with the traffic
school,
situation.
to add, make an addition and a renovation, I forget what it was, I can look it up,
Either
but it
side.
was substantially more than just tearing it down and building a new school.
So, that being said, okay, the information's there in a binder of 400 pages
I
somewhere.
understand that.
Is there any way to put that on the website that just says, this is our study on renovation, and here's 5 pages of that 400-page binder that no one's gonna go through, well, maybe 2 or 3 people in this community, but that's there. So if someone is thinking renovation, click, here you go. Here's the work that the building committee did. Because right now, the presentations we've seen, and I say we, even just as a school committee, is we've seen a presentation that just might have $1 sign or 2, which
The
was the
numbers were on there.
beginning, which is not really a number. And then the last presentation, which I asked for and got to look at it better because I couldn't see it from here, it gave specific numbers, but there was, to me, just as an average person, questioned where did that number come from. You're saying the work's done, not everyone attends the building committee meetings, so maybe just having that section on the website so people can go look, that it's right there, we did it, we looked at it, there's no question about it.
So
Because when
just-
the information's not out there, you think it's out there, but it's
Yeah,
not.
I'm hearing that it needs to be in a digestible form.
Right.
And I,
Right,
But
30.
just to set one thing straight, Doran Whittier did not do the estimates.
Okay.
It is subbed out to
Something
a
else
firm that does estimates
Okay.
for, that's what they're in business to do.
So I didn't know that till
everybody is.
now.
Okay.
So simple things, I mean, we have to bring the whole community along to get a vote. So I know it's extra work, but to simplify what has been going on and showing the community that the work has been done, because many people think it hasn't, but we know it has. We need to get that information out in a simple form that people can grasp, relate,
Just that right,
and then ask
but a
questions.
new estimate was not done by him, because everyone's assuming, because he did West Parish, and he's doing the library, doing this, it's all that
Yeah.
thing, and they want all this public records and stuff. It's not.
Right.
But even
The
they,
last say is the citizens, and you're right, simplify.
But they don't
because
know
no one-
enough.
Only 3 people look under 400 pages, and
Right.
she's sitting right there. And then she'll send me all the emails of what is in that 400 pages. I'm like, no, you Pam, this time it's, I don't.
right, that's great, right, so $30 million to renovate, Is that a per square footage calculation? Is that a, here's what it costs for this
Yeah,
fire, here's what it
there's
costs?
like
we can
categories
get
for
that.
study,
Right.
transition space.
How did you get $30 million? Here's how we got $30 million.
It's, you know, it's the same thing like when you built West Parish and I was a city councilor. You came to the city council, and I'm not saying you, please don't, all, whatever, because it was different school committee, whatever. When they came to city council to explain to us, no one said to us that when we renovate St. Anne's to make it up to code, it's only a certain code. And that was $1.2 million to just put St. Anne's, already a school, up to code so we can use it as an exchange. When I said, why don't we put the preschool there, he said, do you realize that it's not even handicap accessible? We'll probably have to do another $12 million. I went, oh, are you kidding?
Yeah.
So we realized that when we put our children into, it was only for a temporary base, and he's right. We're gonna get someone to look at it and make sure that it's still the same, and Sunday school's not like everyday school, and is that handicap ramp still good, and whatever we did to assess it, it took $1.2 million for 2 years. $1.2 million. Nobody came forward. $1.2 million for 2 years to school. Well, what do you think East Gloucester's gonna cost?
Right, exactly.
What's the courthouse costing?
Yeah, well, I don't wanna talk about courthouse, you know.
That's how I
Yeah.
can relate to not approving that type of plan, because I'm living it and I see the numbers, but the general public doesn't. So
You're right.
simplify that.
The numbers are astronomical, and it has to do with the economy right now, and it has to do with
People don't realize,
and everything else,
you have to realize too, we have to go by state law.
Right.
You just can't get anyone off the street.
Well,
You can't say, everyone says, well, I can do it for cheap, I wish you could, but you gotta go through the protocol.
But that's what I was about to say, is, but the
Prevailing
bottom
wage.
line is that we have to follow prevailing wage.
Exactly.
And as soon as they hear school, you know what, to put an example, we need new fire station, new police station, new DPW. Just that, not even the DPW department, just the back where we store some stuff. Back then, it was like the Cater bus gave it to us for $600,000. So we asked that guy to do it. Well, before he heard it was a school, it was like another million, city. Soon as they heard that it was the city, it went to $2.5 million. What did you put in it, gold? I don't know, what did you put in it? Well, because we have to do different wages. I'm like, oh my God, well, go build a Cater, then I'll just take it back. I mean, it's ridiculous, but we gotta go. Tripled the price.
But
I wish we could do that backwards for weight. But you're right, let's clarify so people can
we
understand.
will do everything we can, and if you have questions, get them to me or the superintendent, and we will try to address them. I understand that that's what we need to do.
Okay.
As far, we did have a discussion with the administration about the status of this building, and negotiations are ongoing.
Well, we have the lease, and then we have 2 one-year leases, so we're fine. You know, we're looking at all, and then don't forget the price to purchase, it's there, so we don't have to worry about anything going crazy and whatever. And, you know, like we said, when we got the money for Fuller, we're looking all our properties, I mean, talk about stack of things of what we can do for the future, because, you know, my administration, we don't want to say, we have this money and just let it sit there and all these little books sit there. We want a 20-year plan. I remember when I was with the Fisherman's Wives, we did a 2020, and went, wow, and this was in 19-something, and I'm going, we're already here, next year, 2020, and what's the vision? So we're doing that, and one of the, they looked at all our schools, we said, if we're gonna invest, let's invest in our own buildings, and let's look at it, let's change it, let's do that. We looked at everything else, and the superintendent's administration said, we'll go anywhere, it's for the children. We have more concern for the children, you have more special needs, you have all these programs that need to be put in, and we're looking at, and truthfully, and we're looking at this is the best building right now. Constructionally and everything else, so, but you know what, in all fairness, like you said, we have to really look at it, because it's not my money, and it's not your money, it's the taxpayers' money, so we want to make sure that, you know what, we do everything we're supposed to do, we hired someone to do it, we're looking at it, we're also bringing out capital improvement, we're getting people like Joel and other people to join, so we can get that going, and we need to do that, and that's what we're doing, so, but we're lucky because when we negotiated, we did the 2 1-year, so besides that, and we negotiated a price. I'm hoping he likes me really, really much and take down the price a little bit.
Okay, my dad's off.
Okay. Right now, give it. I tried to, but it wouldn't.
Well, while we're talking about this building, I think you should hold the rent back until they fix that light outside.
Okay. Well, you know what, you gotta send me, you have to send me an email, so I have to send it to him and say, you know, my friend.
It's dark.
Yeah, you know, it's gonna be darker on your house too, when you're building, so. So, you know, and he's good, he'll do it, so just send me the email and I'll send it forward.
Okay, is there anything else that people would like to bring up before we go into executive session?
Yes, one thing. To Melissa's point, I was hoping we could get in the habit, if people agree or not, of if there is a presentation like this, that it gets incorporated into our packet, that goes on the website. We get a lot of really great information. And so it's one thing for us to verbally tell people what was discussed. It's another to point them to a document that, I think they'll understand everything that comes before us and all the district is doing as well.
As well as it gives us the opportunity to see it before we're presented.
Exactly.
And there may be timing issues, but at least
Yeah.
if it gets in the
I understand that
packet,
can't always happen.
Doesn't always show up in time to get it to you in advance.
If possible, let's do
Whenever
that.
possible.
Anything else?
One piece of new business, I'd like to refer out to, I guess, programs. I'd like to have either Principal Cook or Mr. Bach come and talk to us about the way in which, put simply, the lack of any sort of study hall or time for students at the high school that's not in a restricted class where they could actually be working on homework, working on other things. The inavailability of that, and kind of just hear about the wisdom behind the elimination of that and continued keeping that out of reach for.
I can quickly say that, so in the contract, study hall is not a duty. So a study hall would need to be a section, one of the 5 sections that a teacher would teach. So it would be it's a staffing issue right now.
But I'd like to,
it's not part of the contract.
Is that the only, we don't have to is it just staffing, or is there educational needs behind it, is programmatic need, are they here wanting?
I believe the state does not consider it time on learning.
Right, I mean, is there a creative way in which?
So when you compile your hours, they don't consider it time on learning.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of things, but we can
Yeah.
we can do that.
Thank
We can
you.
do what you
Right.
want.
Now we know.
Yeah.
I'd like to refer to program, kind of what I brought up early. We got a great presentation on high school tonight. I'd like to see if maybe doing something like that O'Malley is necessary while we're on the momentum.
I was thinking when James was presenting, I was thinking that would be good to have Lynn come and talk about what her plans are for the school.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Get that conversation going soon.
No question.
Thank you.
Anything else?
We should work with them.
Okay, we are going to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the GTA negotiations. We will come out of executive session only to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote.
Mr. Favazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Chairman Polk?
Yes.
Ms. Burns?
Yes.
Ms. Sweet? Yes. Mayor Pickens?
Yes.
Dr. Clancy?
Yes.